Says it's preparing. Let it rip. It's on you.
Oh, it's on me now. Well, everybody, welcome back to the Spinner Rack. I'm here with the boys, PD and Cal. Today we're going to be talking about the series that started off, the series that made everything run, the thing that brought the whole...
Keep going.
The whole thing that brought the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe together. The reason that it is Secret Wars. That's
what? That's what you're saying, bro.
That is what I'm saying. Of course, starting off with this miniseries, developed into other miniseries, and led all the way until what? What was it? Huh?
What was it?
Huh?
Secret Wars 2?
What? Yeah. What? Yeah,
it did Secret Wars 2. Yeah, that's true too. But
I'm talking. Which one?
I'm talking about. For the love of God, man! The Infinity.
It did not
war.
lead into that.
It didn't. It's not directly. But I'm just saying in terms. Exactly.
Sorry. All right. Doing
big
the
event and
characters, dragging all the characters into one book. Okay, I get it.
No, I don't get it.
Oh my God!
You're saying one of the first big crossovers within a limited series, right?
Thank you. Exactly.
There was the Contest of Champions.
I think we're forgetting the yearly JSA, JLA crossovers.
Yeah, but that was like what, an annual, wasn't it?
Once a year.
But I'm talking about this big,
like a limited series, that sort of thing.
You know, and of course it led to one of the greatest Marvel thing, the Infinity Wars, and you have all those different spin-offs. You know, bigged up Thanos, it bigged up quite a lot of other people going forward. It's. I'm just saying, bro, this is the story that started it all, and it brought us together. It showed us the characters, some of the leading characters, and also some of the leading villains. You know, this was brought to us by who? I think it was Jim Shooter and Mike Zeck. Right?
There we go. John Beatty, the anchor. Let's not forget him. And ultimately, there's a lot of people in Marvel that were on this series. So there's a lot of inkers. There's also Bob Layton. There's John Romita. So there are a lot of people. Bob Layton did like 2 issues, and he did. Obviously, you can see his. There's a lot of touch-ups on this series. Even though they had these classic talents, there's still with Jim Shooter. There's a lot of art correction since Jim Shooter's missed art correction. So continue.
Wait. We do not have to talk about art corrections at all. Okay.
Yes, we do.
No, we don't. All right, so Cal, give us a great basic breakdown of what the plot of the story, and then we'll break it down by issue or a couple of issues.
Well, a day came to pass when Marvel decided that they were going to sell some toys. In order to sell these toys,
wait, hold on. We're not talking about revisionist history. We're talking about plots. We're not talking about toys. Let's not just talk about the toys.
No, he's right. Let him keep going.
But no, it's going to give people the false expectation that this was just done for pure profit and it was some type of licensing deal with some toy company.
Yes, exactly.
We're talking about this is a work. Bro, this is a work of art, you know, and therefore it was artists working on it and came up with a great idea. So once again, Cal, please enlighten the people with the plot of the story.
Well, once again, it came to pass that Marvel needed to sell some toys because of this deal that they were in. And in order to sell these toys, toys were always supported with a comic book tie-in. Now, this was not new. Okay, we saw this with comics and cartoons. Cartoons were the really big offenders. Stuff like He-Man, you know, they went to court over this stuff, saying, look, you guys can't make cartoons so you can sell these kids toys. It's not right. But Marvel, of course, was like, hey, you know, this is a comic book. We can just kind of squeeze around the edges and that'll be it. So in order to support the toys, as a wing to support the toys, they came up with this particular series. And the way you know that it was about toy support is in the title. Most people colloquially refer to it as Secret Wars. That's not the title. Marvel Superhero Secret Wars is the actual title. You have to ask yourself, why would the average comic book reader need to see Marvel superheroes? Hey, they don't. But the kid, who's buying the toys, and then wants to get a comic, that's how you would identify it for the parents. Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars. Now, that's where it all comes from. But in the overall, we had this situation where in Central Park, this device, rather this edifice, if you will, appears, and superheroes are drawn to it, just for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. It could be the toy, but they're drawn to it, and one by one they all go into it, and it's only the top tier superheroes. Okay, it's not any of the second tier or third tier superheroes. Daredevil doesn't make it in there. Falcon doesn't make it in there. But the Avengers, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, they all get sucked in there. You know, it's really convenient how that happened for them. And they're transported before this entity that no one's ever seen before. And he's called Beyonder. He's called the Beyonder because that's how he introduces himself. He says, "I am from beyond." He becomes the Beyonder. And so that's our basic plot. The heroes are brought there by the Beyonder, and the Beyonder supposedly wants to try to understand, you know, good and evil, human nature, you know, all that stuff that aliens typically want to do. And so he sets them against each other. It's got heroes and villains, and they're going to fight it out to see who wins. And by that, he's going to educate himself into into more knowledge about human beings. So of course, things unfold pretty much the way we would expect them to unfold with the Marvel superhero story. I won't give away the plot as we're going to discuss it, but that's pretty much where you were at the end of the day. Now, for anyone who actually bought the toys, you know those toys sucked. These toys were not posable. Okay, the best you could do was spin an arm around and twist their head. You couldn't move the leg without breaking it. Okay? But now they're worth money. So hey, I guess I was wrong. Huh?
Well, those toys are very popular. But we did not have to bring that in. Okay, they were very popular. It was bought by quite a lot of people, and it was spinning arms was good enough back then. Okay, so
with the little push lever Wolverine claws, they push lever, the claws would come out.
Perfectly fine back then. Okay.
No, G.I. Joe was fully posable, man. Come on.
Yeah, that's the thing. You had that thing. You gotta go to G.I. Joe and say, look at these characters with the arms. You could switch the arms this way. Instead of just going up and down, you could do so much. You could move the hands. That's crazy, man.
G.I. Joe was a toy that became a comic. While these are comics that became a toy. So there's a different emphasis. And I want to de-emphasize the whole toy. We're talking about a classic story here.
The artists for the toys. It wasn't just toys like you find the toys. These were like commercials, like big time commercials.
Yeah. It would be like, Dr. Doom is on the loose. Who can stop him? We can. Avengers.
Yes, you guys are taking away from the story, guys.
No, we gotta go to the behind the scenes. Industry at bay, Jim Shooter.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Now this is when he spoke at he was at a trial for against the Comics Journal. It was actually against Gary Groth and Harlan Ellison, if you know those talents. They basically said something about Michael Fleischer.
What did they do that time?
Oh, they called a writer from Marvel and DC. They called him a name, and that's when Michael Fleischer, with some of the backing from Marvel, would say, "Hey, let's take these guys to task." So they sued Groth and Harlan, and basically it's commentary. It's nothing big. But then Shooter got in there, and then ultimately he said some things about, like the actual ownership of Marvel, which kind of upset everything. So this is where the Comics Journal will say, we got Jim Shooter where we want him. So, and it was Don Simpson who did that. I forget what's the book that he did, the spoof book, but he drew this picture. So, but basically he's a writer. He was the editor-in-chief at Marvel, and since who would take over. Now at the same time, there was also Contest of Champions, which I think was sort of a fun book, but it was just basically the heroes fighting each other. Secret Wars, on the other hand, was the heroes fighting each other, but then they had the villains as a backdrop. But it's almost Dr. Doom. It's more a Dr. Doom story with the heroes fighting each other and some villains, some regretfully lame villains thrown in there at the same time.
All of them except for Doom.
They had Kang, but they took Kang out in 2 seconds. So I was like, this is my first time meeting Kang, because I hadn't got any back issues, all the Avengers issues he was in. So I really only met Kang in like the pencils for Avengers JLA that Perez did. And I was like, oh man, Kang looks cool. And then next Doom is just like, he somehow leaves the story very early on. So he's got it there. Claw comes in there, but he's a nut job. So it's like anyone that looked cool was kind of out of there, and then we get all this time with the Absorbent Man and.
Well, you can't have Kang and Doctor Doom since it's already recognized that they're the same person anyway. But they both have the same option. They want total combination. So you can't have both of them. So you can have one or the other. But
well,
somebody's got to go.
They figured it out for the super villain team up. So I mean, obviously Shooter's writing to Doom, so he just like kind of removed Kang. So I mean, ultimately it's a Doom story. So,
but Kang still got a toy. That's the thing you got to remember. He still got a toy. He was there for all about. He didn't even fight anybody, but he still got a toy.
Well, also brought up the only thing about this is where ultimately, say behind the scenes, with the success of Secret Wars, Shooter also would leave memos to the other talent saying, "Hey, read Secret Wars #6, so how to do this right, and this, that, and the other." So it's like that, the sales and the fact that it kind of was the #1 book, but it kind of siphoned off. It did like somewhat like some of the team's books do, that it siphoned off the sales from the rest of the Marvel titles. So it might have brought in some new readers, but a lot of the other ones, the kids were like, "Hey, what can I buy? I'll buy Secret Wars. It has everybody in it." So, it got the X-Men. The X-Men are in this too. So,
and it did pretty well overall when it came out. It was a very popular book.
Both miniseries did well, even though people they disliked and don't discount the second one. The second one did well too.
Nobody admits to that, my friend.
Because you have certain things in comics, like certain dynamics, which nobody really wants to admit to, but they solved this a long time ago. It's like, hey, if we throw all these heroes into the same book, we'll probably get people to read. And yeah, that's going back as far as like All-Star Comics. The only rule that DC used to have was that if you were already a hero and you had your own book, you couldn't be on the team. So Wonder Woman appeared like the first issue. She was in one issue. That's actually her first appearance, All-Star Comics #8. But then she got her own book, so she never came back. So everybody was always talking about, they made Wonder Woman the secretary. She was there one issue. She was only there for one issue. She was out. It's same thing with the Justice League. The Justice League was supposed to be if you were Batman or Superman, you were not supposed to be on the team. Eventually, they get on the team. With Marvel, this was, hey, the Avengers. We can pull. Really, I mean, the Avengers was like, hey, we don't really got a place for some of these guys, but we can pull all these cats together, because the Hulk didn't have his own book at that point. Giant Man and so on and so forth. They were like, yeah, we can give him some more exposure. And so the team books work. The more people, if you look at it, just about every major event or every like major thing that they really hit, they had to suck just about every character in there. But hey, if your favorite character's in there, you want to read and see what the guy's going to do. And then they used to bleed the Secret Wars too, man. That crossed over into every book, whether it needed to or not. Crossed over into every book. So of course it did well. If you were a completist, you bought it. If it was something that was actually, there was some good stuff too, then it actually worked with the whole thing. So guys may rag on it, but yeah, they understood the market and they understood the readership. They said these guys are going to buy it.
So here's a question, guys. So the characters on both on the main characters coming forward from the good guy side and the villain side.
I think
that stood out.
Covered it. The FF, the Avengers, mainly the Avengers, because Captain America is kind of the leader. The FF would be second. Well, no, after Cap would be Spider-Man, then the FF, and then you would have obviously the X-Men. And then is there anyone else? Then a couple of other heroes pop up in there at the same time, somewhere later. But that's the main group of those characters, are characters that are connected to the Avengers titles and the X-Men titles. So, and even characters who weren't in the book at the time, they get siphoned over, because Magneto gets siphoned over. Cyclops, who doesn't go to Central Park, he's out on his wedding or something like that, or honeymoon, and he gets pulled in. Same with Doom, who was kind of out of time, which is dealt with later in Secret Wars 2. I don't think it was dealt with in Fantastic Four later, but
all the villains were pretty much just sucked in.
Yep, even Galactus though.
Right, and in Galactus, I noticed, and Galactus was practically more on his own side, regardless of whether villain being on the villain side.
He was on the villain side. They put Yonder put him on the villain side, even though
he put him on the villain side, but he separated relatively quickly.
Yes, yeah, you're right.
Well, and of course, Dr. Doom stood above, and he did his own thing for a while too.
So now we're back where you want to be. right on story. We got all of the bits out, all of the behind the scenes, and this, that, and the other.
Yeah, worked out. Spinner out.
Thank you very much. Finally, we got there. So right, so the first issue comes up, and they're all on, what is it? Battle World, right? A battle planet where they've been all put together by the Beyonder. He's put two different sides. No one knows why they're there, what's going on, and stuff like that. And the story proceeds. Petey, I'm going to pass it on to you. Give us a little bit more explanation. Of course, nothing on toys and nothing on dissing.
The characters kind of meet each other, even though some of them already know each other. And for some reason, Xavier's in the wheelchair at that point. But obviously, this book was done a little before the main comics were coming out, so it didn't. Some of the things didn't transfer over. But basically, they go to this battle world, and it's almost like a sandbox, because as the heroes get to the world, it's established in issue 2 that they have headquarters already there. There's already stuff for them to go to. I think Magneto says conveniently there's this, that, and the other. So it's almost like a sandbox has been created for them. So basically, they set up, they meet. And then at the end of issue 1, the villains attack, because there's a little hubbub about Magneto being there, and Magneto says some stuff about helping mutants. But most of the time when he fought the X-Men, he was just about to conquer the world. So no one really kind of talks about what actually happened in the comic books. But ultimately, Shooter's writing the way he sees them. So he's writing these characters where, you see Spider-Man get a little more light. Captain America is definitely the leader. Whereas we've seen in the Fantastic Four, like Reed can kind of take over that. And this one, Reed kind of plays the science officer the entire time, because he says he's worried about his wife who's pregnant and stuff like that. So we just basically set up issue with, I guess, seeing all these characters in the double splash page, saying, wow, look at all these characters. Now, it's not as dazzling as seeing Contest of Champion when they had a big haul of heroes, but in the Shooter way, he wants to see them full body, full screen, and head to toe, where you get to see everything. So this was a different angle, which was interesting. So, ultimately at the end, the villains attack. And any other thoughts on that issue before we jump to the big fight, the first big fight?
A couple of issues. A couple of things is that
issues,
I think that
issues.
Excuse me. Of course, Jim Shooter can do no wrong. All hail Jim Shooter. But
I'll just hold.
You're right. In terms of, I'm just getting to what PD was saying, what Kyle was saying when he was saying that they had the villains, super villains, and stuff like that. But I think some of these villains were tertiary when you look at them. When you have the Wrecker, Doc Ock, it's like what they chose is villains based on the heroes that were there. So they got some of Spider-Man's, the Wrecker. They have him there, and you're like, is he an Ultron level villain? Is he a Enchantress level villain? And you're like, nah, they're not. But because he's a Spider-Man, and I guess they wanted to sell the bad guy Spider-Man's villains, that's why they were chosen. Not that they were selling toys; it had nothing to do this.
You brought up the toys. Thank you. Thank you for that strong point on that fact that we got Spider-Man villains like the Lizard. Doc Ock is fighting Thor, if you believe that. Oh, and who else? You got the Lizard who's whacked out in the head. You did get Ultron, but Ultron gets taken out pretty early because there's a big thing with Galactus to show you how powerful the Beyonder is. Because Galactus goes up against, that's what I didn't say, the big moment in this first issue is Galactus goes up to say, I'm not with this. I'm going at the Beyonder, and he just swats him away. So showing you that Beyonder is beyond all power. And this, I think, for a lot of kids, especially people, what's the name, the battle board sort of thing that you see on the web, seeing a character that was stronger than Galactus, who was the top of everything, kind of appealed to a lot of people, especially the kids. Because I know my cousin, he liked the fact that the Beyonder was the most powerful. And then in Secret Wars 2, when the Beyonder kicks around the Celestials, he was like, yeah. And I think, no, that's not a story. That's just him beating up the Celestials. So no. But I think that appealed to a lot of people too, to have a character that, even though they couldn't see him, he was kind of the most powerful. And it's almost, I think Perez pointed out that this is drawing for almost a beyond Korvac sort of character like that Jim Shooter did, something the next level of the Korvac side.
What's your take on this, Cal?
I don't know. That type of stuff always undercuts long-standing hierarchy within comics. Marvel was pretty good for that anyway. If they had a, look, we'll come in here, we'll have Spider-Man beat up Galactus, and it's, it's fine, it's no big deal. But you come in and, Galactus is this ultimate entity in the Marvel universe. He shows up, everybody starts running for the hills. We got to take care of this. And then to have him go up against the Beyonder, and Beyonder's like, oh, whatever, you get out of here, boy, you annoy me, like the Chicken Hawk and Foghorn Leghorn or something. That's for kids who are not used to the Marvel universe. This is your first introduction into it. And at the same time, it's also for long-established readers, because we're supposed to be looking at like, well, wow, we got to really see who this Beyonder guy is. And then later on, we'll find out that, it doesn't matter, because the Marvel rule even applies to the Beyonder. So, but we'll get into that a little bit later. First issues, I read this. I read all 12 issues. And I remember reading this thinking, this is okay. I never thought this is like, wow, I got to get the next issue. I just really felt that this was something that everybody else was reading. And it was 12 issues and all the heroes were there. And I wanted to be well abreast of it. But I just never felt that that first issue, again, I didn't read it because I wanted to find out so much what was going to happen the next issue. I felt more like I needed to, as a comic reader, to keep reading so I wouldn't, so I would understand what was going on. This was supposed to be a big Marvel event, but I just didn't feel a lot. I didn't feel a lot of impetus to come back based on the story. It was just more the situation.
Yeah, that's a good. I would say at that time I was reading the Fantastic Four. I was reading Thor. I was sometimes on Avengers and the Hulk, and I think at this point I wasn't reading Spider-Man, but it was some things that I wanted to see continue. Because see, like at that point, Marvel, in those books, even the X-Men, the heroes had stopped being the way, like in the Kirby, the Stan Lee Kirby stuff, the heroes would meet and they would constantly fight. Like they'd meet and there'd be something where the hero would think the other hero's a villain and they would fight. So at that point, they made them where the heroes would just disagree. They would just have some maybe disagreements about like saving Galactus, but they wouldn't get into a big fight. And this kind of took it back to the way Stan used to write it, where it'd be like, hey, you big jerk, Cyclops, you jerk. Say, hey, Cyclops a jerk, but he's our jerk. And that sort of like that sort of arrogance and sort of thing of like, oh, you turn to a villain, oh, let's start fighting. And they're just like, no, these guys can't. And when Stan used to do it, it used to be, well, Spider-Man, he would have a full-on blast. But in the Fantastic Four, when Reed would be like the Captain America and the Avengers, where they were going to save Sue, and he's like, I said stop. And then they have an almost fight, but then at the same time, they'd listen to Reed, and Reed would say, no, let me handle this. This is, this is our member, we'll take care of it. And they say, okay, you have X amount of time to do it. So one of the things you can see that shift, and you see as it goes on into issue 2, because issue 2, it seems like it's over. Like the villains, oh, you don't want to go to that?
Not yet. So just before we go straight into it, there was just a couple of other points I wanted to make about about issue 2. So what happens is that a couple of things. One is that Ultron, of course, goes, dude, I'm not part of this whole madness, and I'm going to be doing my own thing. That's one. But the very fact that Doom becomes a pivotal character right away, because he starts recognizing there's something weird and he has to do something. He doesn't have to follow like the other villains and say, hey, I'm stuck here. What am I going to do? He's already making plans on plans. And one of the first things he does is he connects with who? Molecule Man. Someone who's always been treated like oh, wait a second. I know, Petey, Cal, back me up. I don't even
No. Molecule Man was like a hardcore villain. And they made him back to the person he was before he became Molecule Man. When he was a regular human, he was this nerdy guy. Right. And then when he became Molecule Man in the Fantastic Four, and even later when Perez was doing it, he was the Molecule Man. And the next thing you know, they turned him into a wimp again when Shooter was writing. And he turned this little wimpy guy with the power of almost the Beyonder. So
the Molecule Man, if you had been keeping up with him, especially some of the stuff I had read, the Molecule Man was like not necessarily a classic villain, but that guy was a killer. Like he was getting ready, he fought the Avengers, he tried to kill all of them.
Yeah.
He made this some type of some compress machine, put everybody on the compress machine, and just bam, was gonna kill everybody right there. And if the Silver Surfer hadn't like done something with his power so they could have got out at the last second, he would have killed Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hydra. It would have all been Silver Surfer. It would have all been dead. So it was a big shift when you get to Secret Wars. But again, these were characters that had to be introduced. It was like a 60-40 deal. It was 60% the kids and the toys, so they could have some adventures to create with these toys, and then 40% for the regular reader.
I don't know what I'm doing with these guys.
But you say, yeah, your setup is that they were dealing with the Molecule Man. That Doom is the next, highlighting the Molecule Man as the most, and Doom kind of saying, "Hey, you're the most powerful of us. You can stop Ultron." Then the Absorber Man is taking the power, like, so he can't hurt me. Like, what are you talking about? Telling the Molecule, the only one you can save us. Look at what's the name? Look at the Absorbing Man. Like he's surviving this. It's like Doom running to the Molecule Man. Come on, it's Doom.
All right, I guess it's time for us to get ready to move on to the final.
Like Doom? What do you think of Doom? Do you think Ultron is going crazy?
I'm not claiming any character. Unlike you guys, I am definitely not buying.
You got a Doom T-shirt. You got a picture of Doom on your wallet. Okay, not letting you get away with that.
I'm not admitting to nothing. All right, nothing. All right. So you were going to talk about the battle, Petey. Give us.
I'm just saying, there's a quick battle where the villains attack, and it's somehow some characters get knocked out, like Colossus, but the villains attack. They got all this fancy stuff that they found on the battle world, all these cool guns, I guess stuff that was used in the toys, and they start battling it out. They're shooting. They've got these weapons. Everyone's getting knocked out and whatnot, and then slowly the heroes start to gain ground. And then they kind of find their way to their headquarters. Doom has already got his headquarters. No, Doom is following Galactus, trying to figure things out. But it's like they're going around, and the heroes have captured most of the villains. So it should be over, but of course, there's going to be a breakout. The breakout's coming some point later. And at the same time, Magneto is kind of walking around figuring
with the heroes.
Oh, he's like already got plans on doing things on his own.
Right, but I'm just saying. But it's interesting is that he starts off on the hero side and they're like, yo, what the hell are you doing here?
He's walking around with the mutants.
Right, but I'm saying when you do the battle, when they get there, one side, that's what I'm trying to say. One side is on the heroes and then you have the villains, right? And then it's just interesting that you have Magneto put there.
That he was on the side of the heroes, but he was on the side that had some mutants. If they had mutants on both sides, it might have been different.
But you'd figure he's their greatest. He was their greatest enemy at one point, right? So why not put him on the villain side? That was to me one of the most confusing things I saw.
Totally right. But they made him, and they said that hey, he's a kind of anti-hero. So
that's why I wanted to get to that whole thing about Magneto. Was this the beginning where they start transforming Magneto from being pure evil, Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, to being Magneto, the guy who eventually takes over for Charles Xavier?
It's not the first, but it's one of the big stories that let everyone know that he's on the good side of the angels, or sort of, because Shooter didn't play it like that. He played him kind of like he's I'm trying to help my, this is the way he said
peeps. My peeps.
Yeah, but he's saying that he's fighting for people, but at the same time, he's looking at it like that he's still a villain deep down, because in the story as it plays out in issue 2, he fights against Spider-Man, figures that he's doing something bad, and then next you see Spider-Man getting like rolling out in the thing of metal saying it's Magneto, and then the Avengers go out to stop him and he gets away. But he takes the Wasp with him, which
you're jumping all the way into 2. Okay, great.
It is 2, isn't it? What else can we say about 2? It's a big action scene. They find their headquarters, and then Magneto. That's the story. What else can we do?
Ultron is taken out by
that's in issue 1.
Yeah, they started softening up Magneto when they decided that he and Charles Xavier used to be friends and they were adventuring around in Cairo.
Yeah,
that's when he stopped being like a pure villain. It was like, oh, we're gonna do the cliche. We used to be friends, now we're enemies. That type of novel.
Yep.
But yeah, issue 2, action-packed, which leads us into issue 3, which is one of Petey's favorite scenes. It's one of Petey's all time. Petey, I'm gonna let you take this one. Hold on, let me just get a safe distance back.
Well, at this point, for me, the characters are starting, like Reed is really going into the background, and they say it's because he's worried about his wife. But I mean, he was saving the world in the early run the first time she was pregnant, and not stopping from being the leader of the Fantastic Four. But in this case, and going to the negative zone and all that, but Reed's kind of in the background. At the same time, Xavier decides that, you know what? I feel kind of some issues between us humans and us mutants. So we need to leave. And we need to leave and go to Magneto. And I'm like, wait, Professor Xavier knows some of the Avengers. He's worked with the heroes before. He's worked with
government. He worked with government.
The government too. Yes, that's it. So it's like now him coming up with that, he's writing to the conflict, right? So Shooter's writing to the conflict. So this happens, but even though Xavier's, has his full powers, he doesn't mentally notice that Spider-Man is listening in. He said he can't hear, he can't use his mental powers. There's too many people. I don't know why not, but Spider-Man is listening in. And I would give Shooter one thing, even though that doesn't make any sense. The first person Spider-Man takes out is Xavier, right? Even though I don't think Spider-Man's power moves faster than the speed of thought, he stops Xavier, he drops Xavier, then he's bouncing around and slapping around the X-Men.
Colossus.
And he doesn't, he just webs Colossus in the face. Somehow Rogue is wrapped. Now Rogue and Spider-Man had the same powers, except that Rogue is invulnerable and about maybe like 2.5 times stronger than him. But she sort of winds up in a sling, just hanging from her, like hanging up. Like somehow she just got roped up. Cyclops, if you look at the cover, is shooting up in the air for no good reason. He keeps missing, but he's dealt with Spider-Man before. Like even though he's a handful, he has planned use his, obviously his tactics to make Spider-Man, not go at Spider-Man, but go at the web line, because that's what you can hit. The actual speed, and if he's up in the air, you're like, there's stuff Cyclops could do, but ultimately he did, he makes short order. And this issue is a tough one for me, besides it being the X-Men, is that if you look at the original art pages that Mike Zeck did, they're really more dynamic. And it's sort of like plays to Spider-Man just bouncing around, not just sort of whacking Wolverine and webbing up Nightcrawler like they're nothing. It's a more fun sort of series, and it'd be sort of like that, because I'm fine with Spider-Man bouncing through and getting away instead of having this moment with these big wide shots where he's just like battling around these characters. And what's Storm doing? The Storm is just like, and then like Wolverine's like, they took us like amateurs. He took us like amateurs.
Wait. Hold on. You're trying to say you don't like what Spider-Man did? I thought that was one of the best examples in that particular
I would say
episode. I mean, his spidey senses was on fire. He was jumping around left and right. A Wolverine couldn't touch him. Colossus couldn't touch him. No one could touch him. And Storm was trying to get him. So don't try to make it seem as though, oh, Spider-Man is untouchable. No, he was just moving left.
That's the thing.
But
I would go to this. Jim Shooter said in an interview that Chris Claremont saw that and lost it. He came into his office and
fake news.
But
fake news.
He came into his room and lost it. But then Shooter said, "Hey, this is Spider-Man." And that's basically what you got. It's like a cool Spider-Man scene. And ultimately he's taking the X-Men down the peg, because X-Men is the #1 book, but at the same time, he's kind of let you know who the big guys at Marvel. Iron Man is not the big guy anymore because there's a black guy in a costume.
Yeah, we got to talk about that.
Because Iron Man, when Shooter used to write Iron Man has dropped, if he sucker punches Hercules, he can drop him. He's dazed Hercules if he sucker punches him. So in this book, like Rhodey is kind of doesn't know all the stuff he can do as Iron Man, so he's kind of, you know, he gets to use the roller skates, but ultimately, yeah, Spider-Man gets to beat up the X-Men. X-Men, shut Spider-Man's mind, like make him forget, and X-Men go visit Magneto. So that's the basis of the story. And Cal made me talk about that one. Like that makes total sense, right? So I have to be fair.
You're nuts.
I'll never forgive you. I'll never forgive Shooter for that. So we'll say Chris Claremont did get payback. He did the Kunlan Gath storyline where they had a mini crossover in X-Men where Spider-Man gets captured by the New Mutants who have been transformed, and then Spider-Man is sort of like tied up, beaten, and then Spider-Man dies in this storyline while Secret Wars is going on, but all of it is reversed after that. And I was like, man, he's really like Chris Claremont used to write a fun Spider-Man that used to, he'd get hit, but he used to have his spider sense. Spider-Man just gets trounced in that X-Men story, so it feels like a payback story. So that's
it's all payback. It's all personal. It's comic books. When you do that stuff with the versus battle stuff, who's gonna win, my hero or your hero? That's just basic borderline guy stuff. If you hit me, I gotta hit you. As long as we're even, it doesn't have to go anywhere. It doesn't go any further. But you came over here, you let Spider-Man punk my boys, and now I gotta take revenge. Yeah, you're gonna come over and get the worst of it in this issue, in the X-Men issue. No hero is safe. That's why you gotta be even with it, because eventually they're gonna appear in somebody else's book, and they're gonna get like the Garth Ennis treatment.
So getting back to the fight with the X-Men and stuff, Professor Xavier definitely is able to come back at the very end and able to recover, and therefore prevent Spider-Man from telling anybody anything happening, right? So it's not a total loss. Professor Xavier is not completely knocked out of the fight, and he's able to shape, what goes on going forward.
But they shouldn't have left the heroes.
He was taken off a peg, bro. Just a little bit. Let it go.
The point of the story, they shouldn't have left. The X-Men, there was no reason to leave.
Well, they had to leave, because if they didn't leave, the villains would have never been able to beat them later on in that issue. So
you can't say. Okay.
It would have been too powerful if they had all stayed. So they had to get out of there. So that was that's the only reason for them leaving.
Okay, legitimate point. All right, so that in terms of the story. But what's with the whole Magneto Wasp thing? What the hell is that? We see this in the second episode. They get Magneto takes the Wasp. Why does he take the Wasp? Why are they kissing? What the hell is going on?
Look, Magneto is attractive. He comes in there, even though she don't know him from Adam. She likes a good man. Like she's available. She's like, it's the years of this is Shooter's writing in some casual sex into the story.
Yeah.
No, he's not.
Yes, he did. It's candlelight. They're on a different world. It's got some nice, like they're able to hang out. What he's being gallant. I mean,
his job. That's how it is.
He's a guy. She's a girl. Ultimately, and he's not trying to kill her. So, like, not at this point, even though he captured her and took her to his lair, right now he's being nice. So, But thankfully you brought that up, because that leads into our next issue.
Yes, the Wasp revenge.
Go on. Let me hear what you're gonna say.
You got nothing to say about the next issue coming up? That's one of the best issues out of this lukewarm series.
In the lukewarm series, no, I'm not gonna say there's no lukewarm series. Let me see. I want to hear what you guys got to say.
Well,
and then debunk the madness as usual.
Okay. The whole thing with the Spider-Man fight, I'll be honest, I enjoyed it, because I was fully into it. I was still reading Spider-Man at the time. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was like, okay, Spidey. One, I was just like, Spidey's really lucky. So he's just there, and he's doing this, and he's used to fighting the Sinister Six, so he's used to fighting against multiple people. So I gave everything Spidey would need to try to get away, not to beat them, but to try to get away. And then, of course, Professor Xavier wipes the whole thing. Now, if you take a step back from it, and you're a little bit less, because I was a bit of a Spidey head at the time. you take a step back from it, you're like, well, they should have been able to get this. Maybe he would have been able to get half, if not a third of that stuff off. But they should have, these guys should have been able to get, they are the X-Men. This isn't the first time out. And, while Spider-Man's used to dealing with multiple people, they're working as a team. They look like the Keystone Cops and some slapstick stuff in some of those. I'm gonna grab you, and I'm gonna slap you. I'm gonna use you to slap the other guy over here.
The Benny Hill music comes on.
Here's a stretch. But then, okay, we leave issue 3, get to issue 4. I was a Hulk reader at the time too, and that was the first cover that actually sucked me in. Actually sucked me into the story. Okay, and it was something that Hulk fans have used for years. Like, how strong is the Hulk? They were like under 400 billion tons. The Hulk is holding everybody alive. And I'm looking at the cover, and I'm like, okay, but you always remember, you see the cover, it may not even happen. This could just be a dream inside of the comic, but it actually happened. The Hulk was supposed to be standing watch, and he's having trouble because his savage side is starting to percolate. It's starting to percolate again, which is dealt with in his own book. But because of that, he doesn't do a good watch. Captain America wakes up and says, "What are you doing? The shields aren't up. What? Everybody. Of course, it's too late. So the villains attack. Heroes are routed. They're running. They got to try to get themselves away. They're like, okay, cool. And what happens is the villains are looking. They're like, oh man, we got to hunt these guys down and get rid of them. So a couple of them decide, hey, we're gonna come over here, pull some stuff. We're gonna throw it. I think it was one of the wrecking crew. It might have been Bulldozer. He grabs this really large piece of the citadel they were at, throws it at them, and the heroes are like, oh man, what the hell are we gonna do? But Iron Man, and one of the few bright spots that he's gonna have in this series, okay, shoots it out of the sky, and everybody's like, yeah, cool, save the day, we can keep moving on. Molecule Man says, oh, forget that.
Yeah.
Forget that. You're gonna just drop that. He's like, oh, he picks up like an entire mountain range, the size of the Andes Mountains. Says, I'm gonna drop that on them. Let's see what they do to that. The heroes it happens in real time. Because first Bulldozer, and then they're like, okay, it's cool. Then they look like what happened to the sun, and they look and they're like, oh my God, and it just drops on them. It just drops on them. As a reader, you're like, what? Now, wow. Skip. I really wanted, the way it was written pretty well too, because they didn't go right to what happened. They go to another one of the plot lines they have. But I'm still like, okay, what the hell happened? So you go and you find out they're alive. You're like, how the hell are these guys alive? Mm-hmm. Turns out Iron Man, who was it? I think it was Iron Man and I can't remember who the other person was. But Iron Man and another one of the heroes is able to move away enough space, just enough space, so when it drops, there's enough of a pocket for them to survive. But the mountain is being held up by the Hulk. He's the only reason why they're not dead. He's holding up the whole thing. And he's saying, well, I'm just bracing it. I'm like, bracing it? You're holding it, man. You're holding it. And then I have to say, that's probably one of the better. Marvel is good for that. DC is about superheroes fighting villains, good versus evil. Marvel is about superheroes fighting. They just fight each other. They just bicker all the damn time at the end of the day. But in that instance right there, I thought it really worked because they're there, almost everybody is unconscious. And, Reed, this is like, we get a little bit to see Reed over here. They're like, look, we got to get out of here. And he's like, so how are we going to get out of here? And he's like, well, look, let's put some stuff together. So he's doing a MacGyver, make some makeshift thing. And he's like, okay, we're going to supercharge Iron Man. We need this. Okay, we're going to get the energy going through. Iron Man's like, okay, he's going to blast the hole out. The Hulk is like, look, you guys need to do something because I can't hold this thing up forever. And Reed's like, yeah, whatever, you dumb bastard. Just hold it up. That's all you're good for. Just be the muscle and that's it. The Hulk starts getting, he's like, you better get us out of here because if we don't, I'm going to kill you, Richards. I'm going to kill you. So, of course, it works. They blast out, Brains and Brawn, get them out of there today. And then, of course, Reed apologizes to the Hulk. And he's like, yeah, I'm sorry. But he's like, yeah, I know what you were doing. You were getting me angry to make certain I could keep, to keep us alive. But it was just a great moment. That might be one of the top moments in that series if you ask people when it was over. But that was executed, at least, for me, that was executed very, very well. That was everything that you wanted to have in that type of series. Like, okay, great. It doesn't really get too much better after that. I thought that was executed very, very well.
That's one of those where you get the cover and the story meet 100%. You're like, wow, the story completes. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. And then the villains did a pretty good job in winning that whole battle, coming through, getting Thor out of the way. And that's where, unfortunately, where Kang, unfortunately, perishes, because Dr. Doom himself smartly is able to resurrect Ultron and uses him as his little bodyguard, you know?
Well, that's ultimately in this one, it's really, all that stuff happens where you have the Hulk, you have Thor, basically getting accosted by the rest of all of the villains, and ultimately that's the only thing that really Thor really does in that issue when he's with Amora, and he kind of outside of a storm, he kind of has this moment where he's going against all of the villains, but then they bring out Ultron and Thor versus Ultron, but Thor kind of hides to the side, so that's kind of weird for me. But and then also Thor tapping the mountain. They're like, oh, I was trying to break through the mountain. He's like, oh, that was that tapping. No, Thor can go through a mountain. God, excuse my French, but ultimately, it is I guess a highlight for Reed Richards, because you show him thinking in the scene, and you also have, but ultimately, she wasn't writing the Hulk the same way that what was that, Bob Mantlo was doing. Bob Mantlo was kind of had a thing where Reed had passion. I mean, Bruce Banner had passion as the intelligent Professor Hulk, but at the same time, he wasn't this guy that would be this kind of thing, sort of insult thing. So it was different, but that moment kind of paid off the scene between these two scientists. So
hold on one second.
We also had the Wasp taking out the X-Men in this issue. So it was like jam-packed with stuff. Not only the X-Men, this time Wasp one-ups Spider-Man, because she not only takes out Xavier and the X-Men, she also finds a way to kick Magneto's behind. So
it was all a trick. And that's what she says, because she's always been loyal to her husband, Hank Pym.
She wasn't loyal. She was loyal to the Avengers. She's not with the husband right now.
Yeah, she was a trick, all right.
I wouldn't use that word.
So I forgot. I'm a fan of Mike Zeck. We got this thing here. It has his. So I finally found something with the Secret Wars in the house. Some Mike Zeck classic stories. So.
Cool. So, and then in this issue, they also found, weirdly, some little group of people living there, a village of people, just out of the blue that no one expected. And to me, this is like one of the most weirdest parts. It becomes important later on, because it does play into it, and I guess they have to develop something. But I could never, for the life of me, understand why these people, the Beyonder, wanted to find out more about humans, and then this alien group of people are added to the whole mix. So it's like, what the heck? Cal, you have anything to shed some light on that, or PD?
Well, that was more for subplot, because some of the stuff was going to be things that are going to happen later on, right, after they got off the world. So you needed the people there, so you can have. You needed the people there. You have the alien races. You need the alien races so you can have Colossus fall in love with somebody else and then come back and have some drama over here with the X-Men. That's
with Johnny Storm.
What you're really going away from? How contrived? It's like they just set everything is a setup for the next thing. It's like you're not supposed to like here. Subplot here, just to have a big big Tracy arrow pointing at the plot. The love triangle coming up is just like, it is like having these people who are just set up the story where, I mean, ultimately any story sort of needs some sort of human element, but this is obviously Jim Shooter, so it's not just a human element. They got a healer there, like like the heroes when they. Oh, yes. Oh, okay, so you got it. So it's kind of some of the things that are set up are having the headquarters, having the town of people, having the healer, all this stuff kind of takes away from the story. But the thing is that you've got all the heroes, so you don't care about what the plot is. You got these guys fighting. You just have Spider-Man fighting X-Men and Wasp fighting X-Men, and fighting with Cat.
You didn't like the fact that the villains
And the other thing to
came up
remember,
with excellent.
is
Came
that
up
while
with
Secret
excellent.
Wars was going on,
Hmm?
another thing to remember is while Secret Wars was going on, the regular books were still going.
Yeah.
So Secret Wars was going on, and that was 12 issues. So that was gonna be a year. But the heroes went on that adventure and came back in the regular universe the very next month. So all the ramifications, like Spidey's new suit, the Hulk having his leg broken, Colossus breaking up with Kitty Pryde, all the ramifications that came out of that were already in the other comics. So that was supposed to be some synergy, if you will, to try to get people to read Secret Wars. Like, well, I don't understand. Where did you get this outfit? Got to read Secret Wars. How did the Hulk's leg broken?
Yeah.
Got to read Secret Wars.
And
after you're done reading Secret Wars, hop over to your neighborhood toy store.
that's one of the other things I think it's good to point out, that when you saw the regular issues, even though it really wasn't like Shooter sitting in the room with them and them coming up with this grand plan, basically it was like, what can we do with Spider-Man? Oh, give him a new suit. So in the same thing, the first issue, Spider-Man has a new suit, but it's so dynamic when Ron Friend's drawing it and it's him jumping around and we get to see this new suit. And we're just like, wow, I can't wait for him to see what happens, how he gets to that. Even the Hulk breaking his leg in the Hulk comic, the way Sal Buscema drew it, it's like Hulk is jumping around on one leg, and it's the most ridiculous thing, and it's the most dynamic thing until you get to Secret Wars 12, just jumping ahead when you see how he got it, and just like, this kind of dry. But some of the elements of that hearing the breakup with like something going on with Colossus romantically on the world, all those bits is a good point to bring up. Even the Fantastic Four, where the She-Hulk's on the team, you're reading the Thing solo comic, he's still on the world. So it's all this stuff that it basically, editorial thing where they just sort of came up with on the fly to answer Secret Wars, look to everyone like as a kid being like, wow, look at this. If we didn't do this, we wouldn't get this stuff. We wouldn't get the costume. And when you get to much later, the costume, you're just like, oh, we just got a costume. It's not really that big a story. So, well, how far? We're at issue 5 now.
We are issue 5 now, guys.
Wow. We need to zoom because this is where it gets kind of hazy in the story after this point.
Because there's nothing really going on right now. Nothing really happens until nothing. Listen, this is 5, 6. Nothing really that big happens, and you got to wait till like issue 7 or literally the end of issue 7, then everything really starts to pick up. You have a nice, the initial battle of the whole heroes versus the villains that gets resolved, and then we have the last act. But right now, well, hey, I'll let you guys have at it. I'm gonna go get a turkey burger.
Okay. Well, one of the things in the middle of the story is that there's some casualties on the hero side. But ultimately, as we said, the heroes already come back. So it has this weird effect of how are we going to play out losing, like the Wasp is shot and killed in, I think, issue 6, right? Hello?
I'm here. I'm listening to you.
So
I'm not sure if it's issue 6 or 5, I thought. But 6 is probably 6.
I jumped to 6. I'm not sure what goes on. But 5 is the issue where I think the X-Men come. They able to. Let me just.
There's the issue of the 4 armies, I believe it's called, right? And so that's where you have, and there's actually a pretty interesting graph at the very beginning where Johnny's getting healed by the alien woman. I forgot her name. The healer. And she's basically breaking up how things are. And it's a really good way that Shooter has dramatized in the comic where you have, he's like, I have my teammates, then you have our allies, which are basically the Avengers, right? And then you have people who should be your allies, but it's kind of in doubt, which is the X-Men. And of course you have Magneto, who's like the enemy. Then you also have him showing her she's feeling through her powers, the villains. They're just villains, just with a lot of power. Of course, they got Lizard and Bulldozer and Dr. Oct and Absorbing Man and Thunderball, which I always said this whole crew was, Could they not pick more enemies of Spider-Man? But that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
And then they have their leader, Doctor Doom. So these group of enemies, probably with the exception of probably Enchantress and Ultron and Molecule Man. Molecule Man, we know he's not, all there.
No,
and
he can't do anything because if he destroys everyone every issue, we won't have a story.
I know, but I'm just saying, but then why not take charge? But that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
And then you have Doctor Doom. So Doctor Doom is the leader of the bad guys, but we all know Doctor Doom is playing another game. He has a longer game for himself, not for the team. He's just using them as pawns. And then you have Galactus. So that's where you're talking about where it's just like a 2-panel where it just breaks down like, this is what's going on. These are the guys, the good guys, the bad guys. These people were dubious. And I kind of like that, the way Shooter wrote that, and that it wasn't a straight bad guy, good guy thing, because then the story wouldn't have been interesting. It wasn't, because you have the whole thing, the whole thing with the alliance with the X-Men being, is it an alliance? Is it not an alliance?
They were bad guys mid-story, and then they decide they're good guys again later on.
No, they decide that, we mutants need to stick together, and then you're basically coming back and saying later on, like, we really need to stick together because we have to fight all these guys. The Doom and his crew was pretty difficult, and Galactus and whatever the Beyonder has in. So I'm just saying that I thought that was pretty interesting going forward.
I call that delay of game, right? But let's go back. I jumped too far. Let's go to issue 5. Issue 5 is where the X-Men strike back, taking off of the Empire Strikes Back. The X-Men come in. The heroes are kind of struggling with Galactus because Galactus brought us home. So they know things. And it is, as you said, that how did you say that? Her name, the healer. This we call her the healer.
I don't know. I don't remember her name at all.
I think Saji. She kind of somehow they fall in love, and next thing you know, the X-Men come, but they don't go with Magneto. I think they just the X-Men sort of save the day. Well, no, they get attacked by a big robot, and then after they're kind of kind of tenderized, the villains attack again, and then the X-Men come, and I think Magneto and Xavier are just standing on the side. Like, well, it's like these guys should be fighting. They're not supposed to be like the teachers of the X-Men, but I guess they're just playing them as teachers. When X-Men are like fully grown. So, that issue for any X-Men fan is kind of the issue where you're like, oh wow, the X-Men didn't get trounced. That's
and when they finally come to help the guys, and basically, but I mean,
what?
Yeah, my whole thing is that the villains are really a gang, and Doom is running the whole show. Whereas the X-Men and you have individual heroes, and of course they don't give. These books are so big. There's so many characters. It's hard to give them more of a shine. And one thing that I find, and this is of course the 1980s when this came out. What year did this come out?
84.
84. So it's always the emphasis on a male hero. So here you have some of the female heroes coming in, but they still don't get a lot of shine. I think the biggest shine is Wasp in the beginning, and they show Captain Marvel here and there, and it's like this is like basically because they're appealing basically the young boys at this point. No one else.
Mm-hmm.
So they try to be as in current parlance diverse. They try to have, but they don't really give a lot of them a lot of what do you call it? A stay in the story. They're not making decisions. They're not right. Am I right? I don't see it. It's not the same. The main guys here are Professor Xavier is making the calls for the X-Men. You have Magneto, Captain America, Reed Richards. Of course, the Hulk has to have something. Spider-Man, and on the villain side,
outside of that mountain thing, he kind of just gets mad the entire time. He's not really effective. When the big monster comes in issue 5, he gets swatted away. So it's like it's sort of saying that Shooter sort of wrote the Hulk as kind of inept. But if you look at the Hulk comic book, they were dealing with Bruce Banner having the power of the Hulk. And, he would not just be an egghead with the Hulk's power, meaning that you could just trounce on him. He would also get angry. He would also just, and he would overcome. It was a different thing than. But then the Hulk lost in the regular comic book too, so it's not like he just always won every fight. So ultimately, if we get to issue 6, which is the nuttiest, that's where we, after the X-Men come and show their thing, we get our first casualty in the Wasp. The Wasp is killed and later on dumped in the Avengers headquarters. And it's like, how could she be dead? We know she's alive in the regular series, but she's shot in a way where it's just like, she's gone. And then the healer comes, I think later, or no, that's the next issue. But basically, the villains take an attack on the X-Men. The Wasp was trying to get back to them. The Wasp befriends the Lizard, who's kind of out of it and kind of messed up, as you were saying, the Spider-Man villains. But then, of course, the villains out in this big tank, and they just shoot the Wasp right through the heart, and she's out of it. And they dump her. I think the next issue they dump her body on the ground, and that's when the team is like, we want revenge. Hello?
No, you're right. I mean, yeah, that issue was really more of I think Cal was right when he said that one was not exactly, that was more like a filler. I mean, it helped out with a couple of different things, but it wasn't like, I mean, you still can't beat what the cover with that whole cover. That was just a great episode issue. Who wrote that one?
It's still Shooter, all of it's Shooter. It was just drawn by.
Yeah, Shooter wrote the whole thing.
Yeah. But also, I think ultimately Shooter struggled with the art enough that I think at some point he started laying out the story, which is kind of hard to hear since Mike Zeck is, one of the top guys in the field. Yeah, at this point, like he'd already done a long run on Captain America. He already established himself. And, hear that, you see the art corrections and hear, Shooter talk in an interview, like him actually laying out the book saying, this panel here, like drawing little stick figures for a professional to draw. Like, come on, this is nutty. And Marvel is the thing of the plot lines, doing plot, but I guess it makes sense to have to follow this because he's going to ask for so many art corrections, but then he's still going to art correct it later. So
sounds like Shooter.
So we're moving on to issue number 7.
7, that's when we see Spider-Woman. The new Spider-Woman comes up out of nowhere.
Great costume.
Yeah, it's a great, like, wait, what? She has a costume. Is Spider-Man inspired by this woman or whatever? So
you think she was inspired? They were inspired by her?
I mean, she was trying to add a twist to say that here's the costume. And then basically the villains just toss the Wasp out of the dead Wasp, off of this tank. And they bring the healer, and the healer can't save her. It's been too long. Can't bring her back. And the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, they've had it. They're like, right. But they also got Galactus to worry about. They're like, we don't have revenge. Galactus is still trying to eat the world. So.
Yeah, and Galactus is trying to eat the world. It's pretty interesting in that he's like, screw all this crutch. I'm up here and I'm just going to build my machine. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm just going to knock it all out. I'm not going to play with these little mortals and stuff like that. But once again, Doom comes up like, yo, I got to go see what's happening up here. What's there? But unfortunately, Galactus realizes there's an ant on his ship and he needs to eject it. So, Cal, you want to throw in anything on this one or are we moving on?
Where you at? You're still on issue
7.
Oh, so 7 is also She-Hulk.
I was going to throw that in. She-Hulk decides that she's not going to obey orders, and she's going to go get some payback. Because these other guys are over here trifling, and so she's going to go get some payback. And she goes to get payback, and she ends up getting her back broken. They just beat the snot out of her, which I didn't understand. I thought the She-Hulk was a lot stronger than what I was seeing. But I mean, well, one, they did. She was just, they just all ganged up on her. But I still thought she was stronger than that at the end of the day. They made her like, I don't know. I was just, I didn't know where exactly in terms of strength she was for that story. It just really surprised me at the end of the day.
And then the fact that this was a Titania, that chick is a heavyweight. And the next thing we find out a couple of issues later, she's not really a heavyweight. So it's just like, what's going on in this issue. But I mean, they have her kind of, I don't know. It was kind of tough to see that sort of thing. But it's trying to now give you feel like, oh, now the pressure's on. Look at these characters, the villains are having their way with the heroes, and they're being even a million times. They're not capturing the heroes; they're trying to kill them. So.
Well, that I liked. I don't. Yeah, go for it. Let's be a villain. At the end of the day, I really don't want to see no sympathy. You guys are supposed to be criminals, crooks, and if you get rid of these guys, then it's supposed to be easier for you to get your own thing done. So there's no love lost on the side of these villains for any of these guys for the most part. So I have no problem when they make a villain at the end of the day, what they're supposed to be.
I'm just saying they're just being, it wasn't to say how wrong it is. They're the wrecking crew. They're just a bunch of slime balls. But also, I think one of those, either 6 or 7, they also have Xavier's decided that Cyclops should lead the X-Men, and Storm is kind of out of the book after this. So she's in the book, but she doesn't really have much to do. And if you look at the X-Men comic book, Cyclops is from the moment that who was it? Jean Grey had died, had sort of been part-time on the X-Men. He did sometimes assume leadership, but he never took it away from Storm. He always was like, sometimes, and they worked it out in different ways where there was only a tiny bit of conflict, but ultimately at that point, Cyclops would come back to the team at points where he, needed to lead, he would, and most of the time he'd leave it to Storm, but there's other times where he would take the mantle because of what was going on, like Xavier almost dying, he kind of took the lead on that. But Storm was always still, the leader. And this kind of points a point where Xavier, he's blocked out from the villains, so he can't turn them off. But this is so many issues later when Xavier should have shut these villains down like that. But Amora kind of doesn't allow him to do it midway in the series. So now Xavier is just sort of their teacher. They go out and fights, and Xavier kind of looks at their progress. Just stay back and stay in their heads. It's like, but he's walking around in a suit being a teacher while the X-Men are fighting. So
could be worse.
Yeah, but this was the first episode of what?
Of what?
Come on, guys. Number 8. What happened in number 8? Whose costume changed?
Oh God. We're going to this, the Spider-Man's costume? Is that what you're saying?
Number 8, yeah.
Yeah, I guess we got to talk about it.
What do you mean you guess you got to talk about it? This is the essence of the whole costume, right?
Nobody cares about that costume. I actually didn't like it.
Come on, it was the coolest thing out there, man. Black on white. Come on, that episode sold out so much. Come on, they have to do how many reprints?
It sold out because it had 8 months of lead-in. You had Spider-Man 252, where he got the new outfit, and then that was supposed to be the story of how Spider-Man got the new outfit. So of course you were going to get it. Yeah. But all cynicism aside, I just didn't. For all that time, when that new outfit came out, I liked it. I thought it was a very good replacement.
Yeah.
I thought it looked more. I mean, it was black, white with spider. I said it looks more like a spider. I've never seen a red and blue spider before. I said that looks pretty cool. That's a good. I said that's a good look. The majority hated that outfit. They hated it. They had to replace. I think 7 months in, they had to replace it. They had to get rid of it.
Well, the plan was for them not to have it. Like this would just have something to do, and then they would get rid of it. But there was a response, a positive response to it. And Shooter told DeFalco, don't get rid of it just yet. That's why you see him, he has sort of a black costume and a red costume. And it isn't until, what is it? I guess issue 298 to 300 where they put him back in the regular costume, and they make it so that this costume is, is forbidden. Like it's like he would never wear that costume. And at some point, that's when all of the big people saying, "Oh, how could they have done this?" But at the time, it was just fun. You had Ron Friends drawing it. You had not only you had Mike Zeck who designed it. You had a lot of great artists. Rick Leonardi. Like you had all these great artists drawing it. I mean, like, why wouldn't you? Like, this is in you don't think it's gonna be gone forever. Especially, I think it was like issue 5 it was 258 where Spider-Man gets, what they find out what the issue is with the costume, and he goes back to the regular one for an issue or so. But it goes back and forth until 300 where it's like, oh no, how could they done it? It's a marketing thing. But it was fun. It was something that was fun, and Shooter told them not to get rid of it too quickly. So initially they were like, yeah, get him out of it quick as possible. Like, and then next thing you know, they're like, oh no, keep it around. So you see it. You see some classic, I think Byrne did a classic cover with both where he has him swinging one way and then the black costume in the other. So it was, it was something that had a little buzz. But this issue issue 8 is kind of it's kind of a letdown. It's like, oh, he kind of had the Bugs Bunny thing. Hey, I'm going in for my costume touch up and I get this other weird thing. I found this other, and I think at this point in the regular comics, the thing is out on it, so we find out what it is. So it's kind of like all of the steam on this is gone. So
it was just I found the whole thing, I mean, costume wise, for him to get a new costume, it was just so innocuous. Oh yeah, I got a new costume. The only reason why that thing tends to resonate is, one, it was his first new costume in decades, so that was one thing. But the fact that the fact that the symbiote became evil, and then of course Venom. That's pretty much the long-lasting legacy of of that outfit. It was the symbiote, and then there's a symbiote god now, and all of that stuff from that one issue. At the end of the day, that really snowballed into a whole bunch of stuff. So I guess Shooter knew what he was talking about. He's like, keep it around a little bit. It's stayed around a lot longer than anybody expected. A lot longer. But
did they develop his? Sorry.
I like the fact that he could change into regular clothes. I like the fact that the web shooters came out, top of the gloves. I like the fact that he could put stuff in there. I was like, this is cool. And the guys that were in the comics, they're just belly aching. And when they finally put him back in the original, they're like, oh, it's so nice to see him back in those red and blues. I was like, hey, I just thought it was a cool costume.
Well, you see now they have the Iron Spider, right, in the movies, where they're like, hey, we have to do more than just a regular cloth outfit. They have to give him something with the spider. So they're basically giving him powers. They're upping the suit to a level that it could have been done, from back in 252. Could have been kept after 300, right? But they didn't. They decided, hey, you know what? We're just going to create its own separate identity. And to this day, hey, you can't even knock. Venom is now a huge character. Who would have thought that Venom would have been developed out of that suit? I mean, whoever thought of that, I would never have thought that. Would you guys have?
No.
Oh,
but,
but yeah. So I mean,
no, that's just a tough one at the end of the day, because Spider-Man's costume was, I don't really find it iconic at the end of the day, but it's just a nice design. And that type of change, especially when they do the change, like, well, it's not coming back. What do you mean it's not coming back? So you will get a very, for readership. It's not like the Wasp changing the costume and she had a new one just about every issue.
Yeah.
I understand that might have been a little touch and go. And there's always, of course, the marketing, branding, the trademark. You want that costume that people recognize. But otherwise, I mean, that costume could have just been like one of these points in like the Spider-Mobile or something like that. It could have just been the new costume, the Spider-Mobile, and that was the end of it. But it had a lot of it. I mean, it just had a lot of staying power. It had a lot of staying power, and the idea of making it, like Petey said, making it verboten, where, oh no, the symbiote's evil, and then, oh no, the symbiote finds another host, and oh no, there's more symbiotes.
Well, to only lead into the other craziness in this issue is that outside of Spider-Man taking out Titania, Colossus
Wasp
decides to help. Was that Sasia? Like, to help her because she has so many women pass out in this series.
I know this episode is crazy. I don't know what it does.
So she passes out, and Colossus says, "Hey, let me just use some of your incense," and basically a new reality happens. Basically, the Wasp didn't die; she's in some sort of stasis, and basically, the healer was able to heal. The Wasp is alive now, and it's just like, all right, they're just going to do whatever they want in this story. But obviously, we couldn't have the Wasp. We know the Wasp isn't dead, but it's just so wacky. That's when I was like, yeah, I'm checking out. As a reader back then, I was like, yeah, I'm checking out for the rest of this. Like, I'll come back at the end.
I read that. I was like, what the hell just happened here, man? I can't get it. But they got me with the Spider-Man because I didn't focus on the Wasp thing. I was like, yo, you see that suit? Oh my goodness. But this is a pretty weird episode for a lot of the female characters, from the Enchantress, where she's getting drunk about the Thor and the whole thing with the Wasp. And, you know, I just thought it was like a very weird issue. That I was like, why is this? The chicks in this episode just got it bad. I don't know what happened here. You know?
You also have the Thing, who has performance anxiety. He keeps turning back to Ben Grimm at the wrong time. Like, at least, like, after strenuous activity, maybe he turns back. Who knows? He just like, look, I'm in the mid-fight. I haven't fought. I'm just running to someone, turn to human. And it's just like, which is leading to something later in the book. But
it's interesting you brought that up, because I was thinking the exact same thing with the Hulk in Infinity Wars, where he didn't want to come out. No.
Yeah, they never addressed that well. That was whack.
Yeah, it was. It's just I don't know. I don't know how.
The Hulk doesn't want to fight. The Hulk doesn't want to fight. Okay.
I mean, is Thanos that bad? I don't know. But this.
It sure as hell looked like it. It looked like I got my ass whipped. No, I don't want to come back out anymore.
Definitely.
And they didn't let him get any payback. But he was going to fight him again in the second movie, and it was all Cap, Iron Man, and Thor. Instead, they let him do the snap. I was like, whatever. Somebody needs to handle that.
Stepping away, or what are you doing? He stepped away. Okay, so if we can rush through this, because at the end of this, Galactus.
Oh, no, we can't rush through this. I was getting robocalls by RNC and DNC and CCS and BBD.
Why are you taking a call?
It's gonna keep on ringing. No one's gonna pick it up.
Just hang it up. Oh, that's what you
silence the call.
That's what I just did. I had to grab the phone. I can't do it with my mental powers.
All right, let's get on. Galactus is about to devour the planet in issue 9. Yeah, everything is going kablooey now. It's over for us. No, it's not actually over. But this is the biggest delay of game issue. When I finally read it, I was just like, what is going on here? Basically, Galactus is going to devour the planet, and for some strange reason, all the heroes are fighting against them. They have Reed Richards talk to Galactus, and this is the dullest issue ever.
There was a lot of fighting. No,
the fact that Reed is talking to him, and Galactus is selling Reed on this. Oh, you're the preserver of life, right?
Yeah.
And the other, and he goes into this thing. So it's like, then Reed goes back to the heroes, like, we have to let Galactus eat the planet. And it's like, Reed would never decide that. Every time, even if he doesn't want Galactus to die, he's never stopped fighting while Galactus is trying to eat the planet. So it's just like so nutty, that they just delay this issue to have him say something different, where he's like, hey, I'm the universal champion or something like that. And then next thing you know, the X-Men are like, hey, we got to help you guys stop Galactus too. So all of the heroes are going after and trying to stop Galactus. And Reed decides, you know what? I should fight too. So then Reed kind of takes the lead finally. He's kind of helping him out. He's saying, no, he can't escape. But Galactus is gone.
But what happens?
I'm saying Reed's mistake by delaying them and saying all of that BS about protector of life is now faced with everybody dying, right? But
who comes to save the day?
He doesn't come to save the day.
Who comes to save the day, bro?
He comes to steal the power.
He comes to steal the power.
He stops the destruction of the world. He stops with the destruction.
Oh, he's been planning on taking this power for who knows how long. He's been help a claw.
So we're moving to
since he stole the Silver Surfer's power in that issue.
Yeah.
You guys are so negative sometimes. I just don't understand. I don't even know who you guys are talking about, first of all. And you guys
know exactly who we're talking about.
No, we don't. Are we moving on to 10? Are we still done?
We got to get through this.
10 is one of the bestest covers ever. You know what I'm trying to say? When you look at 10, The power emanating from this is like, yo, what the hell just happened? How did he get through this? And you're like,
Mike Zeck
nice.
and Terry Austin, a nice cover.
That's a fantastic cover, you know. And what happens? Our man feels the power of who?
No, wait a second. You got the whole thing is the whole thing that's going on. He takes the power. His plan is now to take on the Beyonder. He's got Galactus's power. They're doing all this stuff, and then at the same time, he's like, my next trick is going at the Beyonder. And the Beyonder is like, you cannot approach me. And then next, what's the name? We know Doom is gonna lose, right? Because
he's ambitious. He's ambitious.
Galactus lost early on. So he's like, no, he's like calling him a coward, calling the Beyonder a coward, all this crazy stuff. People are the what's the name? Who is it? The She-Hulk is passed out again. Everybody got to carry her around, everyone's getting knocked around. And Doom is at his death's door, right?
He takes it up there. No one has the manness to get up there and take it on. Had to be somebody as tough as Doom, excuse me, not Zoom, because we're working on Zoom right now. But Doom! That's what I'm talking about. You know?
He says, I'm about
he chopped up Claw into pieces. He chops up Claw into little pieces so he can make lenses, you know, that he could develop perfectly. So he can take the power that's perfectly attuned from Galactus and draws it into himself. And once he gets it, what does he do? He wants to save all of mankind. And he goes against the Beyonder. Back it up, Cal.
No, he wanted his power too.
Back it up, Cal.
Doom wanted the Beyonder's power too.
No. I said back it up, Cal.
Back up what?
Back up what I just said, bro.
No, it's not right.
We don't even get to see what happened. We see Doom close to death. He's kind of like, thus Doom falls. No. What is pain to such as I?
Doom is the guy who's... Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's like he's having this moment where he denies death, and the next thing you know, we don't see it. We just see that he won.
Yep.
Like, what happened?
No, what happened? If I remember correctly, Doom comes in, does the equivalent of a sucker punch on Galactus, who of course is always, I need to feed, so I'm not as powerful as I would normally be. They love running that line. Anyway, sucks the power out of Galactus. Great. And then the ultimate plan was like, look, if this guy's stronger than Galactus, Doom like, I want that power. So he goes after that. He wants that power. And he puts up, which I think it was illustrated better with the words than it was with the actual images. But it made it seem like there was this fight going on. It was something that mortals couldn't have probably comprehended. But Doom was just out of if Galactus can beat him. Okay, that was one thing. This was Galactus who needed to feed, so he definitely had enough power to do some stuff, but not enough to necessarily go against the Beyonder, knowledge, whatever. So of course he's going to lose. The Beyonder then is like in curiosity. He's like, "What kind of being is this that would want to fight?" He starts dissecting Dr. Doom. Right, I'm going to dissect. Let's see what the hell this is made of. And I give credit to Doom because somebody else, I'm pretty certain if I was being dissected alive, that I might be thinking about a whole bunch of other stuff other than like, hey, I got to get that power. But something if I remember correctly, something distracts the Beyonder, and in that distraction, Doom is somehow able to do something and fight all the power for himself.
That's right.
How he did it, don't know.
Hey, we know how.
We see the ultimate power in Doom. He comes back and says, "Yes, I've got the power." And he takes off his mask, and his face is perfectly remade, which is what Doom wanted all the while. He kept that horrible, ugly face because he says the only way I'm ever gonna have a face again is if I do it, because I am Doom. But that was to show us that Doom is like, he's there, he's the pinnacle now, baby. But was he actually the pinnacle? No, because he's the bad guy, and the bad guy always loses in the end. Now, here's the thing. I'm surprised
we got two more issues. You're going a little quick because we still got two more issues. This thing.
Here's what I'm surprised you haven't said so far, Petey. You always say with Crisis on Infinite Earths, this story should have been over about issue 6, if that.
Dude, I would have been happy if it went for a 4-issue miniseries.
Okay, it should have been about 6 issues.
No,
Max.
We would have missed some of the great covers. You would have missed some of the great covers. That's why we're talking. We should. And the development.
Make them pinups. That's what you got to do.
And the development of Doom's character over
There
the course of the story.
There was no development. They had the thing of where he already knows he's going to win while he's being dissected. It doesn't make any sense.
He awakens and takes it, bro.
He's like, hey, you guys who wants to join me? Of course, who lets all the heroes down? Magneto. I'll join you. Yes. So
I'm down with that power.
So ultimately, Doom, as said, Doom comes to them. He reveals himself. I mean, in a nice way.
So this is what episode? This is issue what 10 we're talking about now?
11. We got 11. 10. Lord,
it went pretty fast. That's why I was like, yo, what the hell?
Nothing happened.
What do you mean? He takes the power. You know, he takes the power. We need to study that.
He gave you all the bits. He gave you that Doom guy got dissected, but at the same time getting dissected, he's like, I'm about to beat him. I'm about to win. He's basically in the stand saying, let me get some popcorn while I take out this Beyonder. Like,
you guys just seem to just want to go through the Doom thing so fast. It's like just ridiculous, man.
We've been at it for a while.
We haven't gone through, you know, how he handles the Enchantress and all the other characters and stuff like that, and how he made himself leader. We have to really this is really Doom's story. Let's call it what it is.
I said that early on.
I know, and I'm agreeing with you. You know what I'm trying to say?
So we get to 11 where it's all Doom. The next 2 issues is just about Doom. And Doom being his own worst enemy. Right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So he's basically like, the Beyonder's dead. He's I could destroy you all with a thought. But ultimately, he's just like, he won the thing. And he's not thinking about going home yet for some strange reason, since he's got all this power. So basically, it's just like sort of interlude issue. But Doom is all powerful, and the heroes decide in this point that they're going to have their final strike against Doom. And what happens? Doom takes them all out.
Yeah, like I was waiting for Mario to chime in. Like, dude, he takes them all out, baby. He does that.
The most powerful things in the universe is destroyed. Captain America's shield is broken. I guess I'm not sure if Thor's hammer gets broken, but
he had to do that, right? We got to break Cap's shield. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Yes, you do.
How else will we know he's all powerful?
All powerful means you have the shield. No, I don't know. After this, after him taking the power, it seems to me everything goes downhill from there. You know.
Well, because it's like he decides that it's almost like obviously the Beyonder, who's sort of now he's not just the God character, he's the character behind the scenes. That somehow his character slowly reveals himself through other characters as these last 2 issues are going on. But basically, Doom, they basically does Inception. And this is what usually happens in marriage, where someone puts an idea so deep in your head to do the dishes, where they say, hey, what if you do, like, if you do this at this time, you won't have to do it at 12 o'clock at night. Basically, that's how they build up the destruction of Doom. It's like, hey, what if one of the characters survived and then put the healer into the meta thing, and then that would bring back all the other heroes. When Doom decimated them, if you destroyed Captain America's shield, everybody's dead. There's no bringing them back. But since Doom's all powerful, and if you put a thread into his head that they could possibly survive, then Doom's own power would recreate everything. And that's basically the story, but it leads to a moment where we have the heroes come back, right? And we get this thing where Cap's been kind of the leader. Cap meets up with Doom, even though Doom is more a Reed thing, but Cap's been the leader of this entire thing. So when Doom meets his demise, he obviously meets it with Captain America when Doom has too much power for Cap to show up. But ultimately, the trick of this was that
Reed Reed couldn't have been, I mean, Reed should have been the one there to do it, but Reed couldn't, and we both know why Reed couldn't do it.
Why? Say
because Reed didn't have a toy.
That's a better reason than Shooter.
Captain America had a toy, so you could recreate the Captain America Dr. Doom fight, but Pete Richards didn't have a toy. There was no toy for Mr. Fantastic, so that was pretty much that. It was Cap's show.
Probably should have had the Ultimate Notifier with him. Then probably they could have done it then.
That wouldn't have worked on that guy.
Look, I was very disappointed by this issue. You know how it all ended and everything. You know, I was like, you know, I was up until 11. I was there, and then boom, I was like 12 issues for this. And you know, being
what was your gripe? I thought you'd be in heaven right here. Dr. Doom got all the power. He's beating everybody. What was the problem that he lost? That was the problem, right?
Oh, no. I was talking about the way the heroes were treated at the very end. That's what I'm trying to say.
You don't like him destroying Captain America and Captain America coming back alive like
again and again? No. Yeah,
like
I mean.
It was nothing. Like he was shooting Captain America with nothing.
I just was disappointed in this issue. I remember being disappointed then. I remember when I read it, I was disappointed again. So it was not what I expected. But it was a fun ride. It gave us insight to so many other characters.
What did you expect aside of absolute victory?
There was absolute victory for a while there, right? Wasn't there?
He's a bad guy. The bad guys lose in the end.
They didn't treat Magneto as a bad guy, did they? They treated him as a complicated guy who was.
No, they didn't. He tried to be a villain every chance he could in this series,
and he got his butt handed to him by the Wasp.
Okay. Well, clearly you and I read different stories, you know, or you and your fake news interpreted it very differently than I did.
No,
you know?
We read the same story.
You know, and your biases clearly come out in it.
So they say after this, with the sales, that Shooter put out a memo saying, you know, maybe we could drive some more sales if you guys kind of look to Secret Wars as a way to do your characters right. Because he was seeing the book as sort of the official way these characters. But you have to also imagine that, well, I guess the Fantastic Four wasn't really struggling, but it kind of off his square. And the same with Thor. Like Thor was really off, like they were close to talking about canceling or canceling for a little while. And that was back on the way it's supposed to go. But Shooter wasn't writing it. He was writing the book the way it was written before Walt Simonson got on the book. Because before he struggled with being around humans and such and stuff like that in the regular Thor series. And in Simonson, he's like, hey, I like being on Earth. And then 2 seconds in Secret Wars, Shooter has him say, oh, this is not for mortal ears or something like that. Or I'm tired of being around mortals. It's like he fought all that time against his father to be around mortals. He gets on Battle War for 2 seconds. He's like, where's Amora? I can't deal with these mortals. Like, you know, you're Avenger, right? I can't deal with these mortals anymore.
So getting back to just wrapping up the whole Secret Wars, a couple of questions here. Number one, what were the effects? What happened at the very end? You know, at the end of the conclusion.
There were more crossovers. As you said earlier, that's the effect of it. The Secret
Wars 2, which we will never review. That's not gonna happen. But you did have, you did have some lingering things that came out. The Hulk went back to being a monster again after a storyline where he lost the Bruce Banner component of his personality altogether. We saw, probably the biggest effect is the symbiote outfit and all the symbiotes that come later. Mm-hmm. You had some minor stuff. You had some you have the long-lasting effects to the romance between Colossus and Kitty Pryde. So I think it affected her so much she became a lesbian because I just found out the other day she's a lesbian.
That didn't happen yet.
I don't know about that.
Luckily, they sort of got back together, I think, in issue 197 when they started to work together. But then the Mutant Massacre kind of messed up their relationship forever. So.
Yeah, but what about with the Fantastic Four after this? Didn't their sales start to drop?
No, the sales went back up.
They went back up.
The sales went from being like the #2 book when Secret Wars was out. It went to like being like 10, and then I think when Secret Wars is over, it goes back to #2 and #3. So it's just like, and that's for Marvel. For the comic industry, you probably had maybe, you had stuff like Titans in there somewhere. So, but it was, you look at the sales, it's really interesting because I think that's one of the things that I think that the Marvel people at Marvel were looking at it, saying that, oh, it's sold like, what was it? I guess it's they printed like 600,000 each issue, like each issue copies an issue. So at the same time, that's what the X-Men is selling. So Shooter's like, I brought in new readers, and then next thing you know, you're like, oh no, this got siphoned off the entire line of books. So not sure how many new ones, but it was a lot of the existing readers saying, oh, I got to get this book, and what book am I going to drop? And that's one of the things that I think a lot of when you're buying some book is using the same audience. It's not always like, oh wow, that we found, but they had TV, they had a lot of cartoons, like a lot of commercials for the Secret Wars stuff, at least the toys. So maybe they did draw in a couple of new readers. So, but I mean, ultimately, this is what, there's a Secret Wars in the last like 5 years ago. They did one at Marvel. They did a big ultimate crossover with all the crossovers in Secret Wars. So,
And what about the other characters such as the Beyonder? And the Molecule Men, people who show themselves to be super powerful in this particular venue.
The the Molecule Man stays the behind the scenes character. He lost his longtime girlfriend, Volcana, and but
should have put a ring on it.
He should have. He'll never get a girl like that again. But but ultimately,
what do you say, Cal?
I said no, he will not.
But the Beyonder becomes a character, a full-fledged character in what's that thing? In Secret Wars 2.
It's 2.
And I think he shows up in the Fantastic Four later by Steve Englehart. And ultimately, I don't think he gets used outside of that. I think that's no one else decides to do. Cal, did the Beyonder show up in the most recent Secret Wars?
I don't know. I don't recall him doing it, but they expanded on the whole thing where he's not unique. He was supposed to be like a part of a race of Beyonders, which is just wild.
Oh God!
It's like you got a race of guys that's powerful. It's like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's it doesn't. When you have powerful beings, overpowerful than more powerful than everyone else, then what's the point of the story? He could just get rid of you whenever you guys want, So. It's kind of disappointing sometimes to a degree.
Well, Marvel plays around with power like it's there's a difference, and okay, we got to tell a story, and so I need the hero to be able to do X, Y, and Z so I can execute this story. Marvel's always been a little bit different with that. It's like, look, we got to fight. Got to fight. These two guys got to fight. So I need this guy to be. I need him to be like a little bit less powerful, and this guy to be a little bit more, and a whole hell bunch lucky. So we can execute these things. But then they just start going, they start going off the rails with it because, the Beyonder, when the Beyonder was introduced, I think that was a really high level of power for the average reader taken. He was more powerful than Galactus. He could do all of this stuff, but the thing I thought that centered it was like, okay, it's just this one time being who happens to be this powerful. Then when you say he comes from a race of guys like that, he becomes obsolete.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And what I always found about that I really didn't like was that you have characters like Galactus, which, Galactus and characters like him are more important to the overall Marvel universe, the mythos of the Marvel universe, the cohesion of the Marvel universe than the Beyonder. But then just to show, well, look, we got to show how powerful the Beyonder is. So we're going to wharf this guy. We're going to wharf this guy right over here. We're going to get slapped down so we can show how powerful the Beyonder is. I'm like, you can show how powerful the Beyonder is without him beating Galactus. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that you could do, but that's the shortest, that's the quickest way. Say, hey, I want to show how powerful this guy is. Let him break the Hulk's bones or something of that nature. So, those type of things, never sat well with me. There I mean, this is a very big crossover. I don't know if you can really call it a crossover, but this was a very big event book. Let me put it like this. This is a very big event book for Marvel. Numbers wise, very successful. Writing wise, your mileage may vary. It probably will, depending on it. But without a doubt, you got a lot of long-lasting effects to the point that that last Secret Wars series, when was that? 2015?
Yeah.
2015, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's not that long ago in terms of comic book time. So as recent, and that was a big event that crossed over into everything.
Mhm.
I tried to read all of it and I gave up. I just said, no, I just can't do it. You just can't do it. But it shows you that, there is a legacy and a longevity to that particular storyline. And I hate to sound cynical about it, but I think a little bit less about the story and more about the money that you can generate from telling a story like that.
Well, it's also, I would say my last bit is going through just talking about Shooter as a writer. Post Secret Wars 2, when you look at the stuff he did with the new universe, and then later, even though the Valiant universe is a little bit flashier, he kind of trying to move away from what Marvel's storytelling was and do even like not to say just really basic storytelling like what we'd see from like artists like Don Heck or something like that, because you see this in sort of his thing where it's like it's interesting to see what I'm not sure what the shift was, why he moved away from he had the bickering and the arguing in the comic books, but he went away from the big, like they would be cosmic fights, but it was a lot of like talking and interacting and stuff like that in the Valiant books, and definitely in those things. So I'm not sure if it had an effect that we got a lot of the big fights out of his system, but then he would art correct, make sure Spider-Man wins. But it's interesting to see if you look at his later work, the stuff that he did, even going to Defiant and Broadway comics. Well, Broadway's kind of nutty. Those things are really and Defiant's kind of nutty too. But the storytelling where he really moved away from the Marvel stuff, which is stuff that he kind of could teach people. He could teach you how to do stuff like Jack Kirby, and but then he kind of went away from that. So I would just want to point that out to see how different the stuff he did post that point. Even though in Valiant he did the big crossover, he did Unity, but he had that sort of crossover. But then here's the Beyonder himself right here. We get to see the Beyonder,
looking like Dr. Doom
in this wacky outfit. So, and his Jerry curl. So
yeah, who thought that was, well, who cares? Somebody thought it was a good idea.
He was gone, he's there, I always thought like the Beyonder when I read Secret War 2 is that they reminded me of the Q. Remember the Q?
Yeah.
The Q. Well, before you thought it was just one, and then all of a sudden there's like a whole continuum. You're like, what the heck?
Well, that's when you start to run out of ideas.
So that's right. But I want to get back into, we were talking about how this series was it was important in that, yes, it was a miniseries, and it was a very popular miniseries. And I think Cal, you brought up the fact that there was, prior to this, there was Contest of Champions. Yeah, and them continuing the series with Secret Wars, which was very successful, and of course you had the very successful DC had the Crisis series that it all led to the probably one of the best limited series that there was, and that was Infinity Gauntlet, which of course has been probably the biggest of them all. Just spawned more books. Yeah, and I just want to just wrap it up. I want
to go to Crisis for a second, because obviously DC is trying to do something similar. That's a little more story-based thing, having it within the regular universes.
Uh-huh.
One of the things that Perez talked about with it, saying when they were doing it, whereas Marvel guys didn't have a choice, they had to do something to connect with the Secret Wars, the first mini, where the main ones that were involved that Shooter picked, they had to do something in their regular titles. And when he did the second one, they had this long crossover had to be in those books. Perez talked about when they first started
Crisis.
that the other writers outside of Roy Thomas, who was doing what's that thing, All-Star Squadron, a lot of the other people didn't want to really be involved. And once they saw the sales on Crisis, they were like, hey, can you put my character in there? So it's interesting that sort of effect that could happen, and same happened in Infinity Gauntlet, where initially they were like, the first mini, they were like, no, you can't really have the X-Men, and then they had to, well, give us two, and they gave Wolverine, and you got to give us Wolverine, and we'll give you Cyclops too. So a lot of people didn't want to be too involved in it. And then when Infinity War happened, everyone wanted to be in it, so.
That's a good point. But just getting back to it, the Marvel, the Infinity War, Gauntlet and stuff like that, and that, that series was probably the culmination of all of these little miniseries. I don't think any other little miniseries has sold as well. Cal, can you back me up on that?
You know what? The miniseries has sold as well as Secret Wars?
Yeah. No, as
Infinity
Gauntlet. Because it was pushed because of the whole world-changing effects that they caused.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not true. But it was. I mean,
what other limited series series did it? There's none. Secret Wars was huge when it came out. I don't remember the numbers for Secret Wars 2, but after that, then you had Crisis. Probably was huge when it came out. But once Infinity Gauntlet came out, that was just blew everything out the box.
It's so
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not true. But I mean, it was still a great. It was still a great.
You can't back it up.
You
can't back it up.
All right. Hey, I'm pretty. If you want to do another show on it, that's fine. But the last time we did that, I went ham, and everybody was telling me, no, you didn't have to go all the way. So I'm pretty sure that's not true, and I'll leave it at that. But it was still. I mean, where you're going with Infinity Gauntlet, the extrapolation from Secret Wars to Infinity Gauntlet, when I honestly think Infinity Gauntlet borrows a lot of stuff from Secret Wars. It's a better story, even though it has some problems of its own. But I thought the better story was not Infinity Gauntlet, but the Thanos quest, where he actually goes to get the gems.
Yeah,
because that was actually a nice tight little romp right over there. Got to like a with the Pokemon, got to catch them all type stuff going on. When you get to the Infinity Gauntlet, the same problem happens that you see with Secret Wars, Crisis, and all these really long stories. That story could have been over in 3 issues. It could have been over in 3 issues. The biggest letdown in that was where they set up this thing where, okay, the Silver Surfer is going to come and he's going to snatch the gauntlet off Thanos' hand. And what happens? He misses. I was like, what do you mean he missed? What do you mean? He's traveling at the speed of light, isn't he? Time is freaking stopping for this guy. I was like, how the hell did he miss that? But there was a larger story that they wanted to tell. They could have just done that. Did you read what was it? I forget what it was collected as, but that first Thanos story where he's fighting against Captain Marvel. Both of you guys read that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. See, that I think pound for pound, that was like a damn near perfect story at the end of the day. And it emphasized everything that Thanos brought to the table in terms of his chicanery, his machinations, all his plotting and his scheming, and why it was going to fail. Because at the end of the day, there was going to be a hero who was going to have stick-to-itiveness, okay, to beat him in the end. Captain Marvel beats him while he's dying. He beats him while he's dying, and everything was said with those actions. In the Infinity Gauntlet, you have that great speech from Warlock where he's like, oh, you lose because you want to lose, because in your heart you're a loser at the end of the day. And I'm like, yeah, it's a good speech, but it never held the same weight as that first caper, if you will, with the cosmic cube of Thanos. So those type of things, they do link to Secret Wars in terms of their the spectacle of having so many heroes together. They all have that same the same feat of clay when it comes to a length that really can't be supported, and the action that needs to be shown as opposed to being told, in terms of this story. The idea is we want to see that Doom is this guy who's always going to fail because he goes for ultimate power, and ultimate power is something he just can't manage, and he keeps proving that over and over. Okay, we get that we didn't need 12 issues, and was it shown very well. Same thing you get with Thanos. If Thanos is just going to lose over and over because on some level, he's just going to short circuit himself. We didn't need 6 issues to do that, and we didn't need to see him beat just about everybody in the Marvel universe to find that out as well. What that just does is for the writing is that, hey, I wanted to do the story. I don't know how to write my way out of this except for the guy, kind of beating himself at the end of the day. Okay, which is cliche. Okay, it's the work, but there we are.
Well,
but you have to do that because
no,
if he doesn't,
before you go to that, I would like to say that
I just want to rebuttal, man. I got my 10 seconds.
No,
don't forget that.
I just wanted to point out that one of the key things is that the whole Thanos plot started from the Silver Surfer.
Right.
So having the Silver Surfer do something important instead of all he did was tell the heroes or Doctor Strange, hey, Thanos is coming. But that's all it amounted to. And it's like you took him out of the story, and then I get it having Warlock in there to do that since he's born again in the first issue of the Gauntlet. But it's kind of a letdown that the Silver Surfer really doesn't really do too much in the actual Gauntlet. In the comic book, it's even sort of worse, where he find out some history of Norrin Radd. So sorry for interrupting. Mars. Sorry, interrupting Snowy. I'm okay with interrupting.
No. Even Snowy's on my side. Like, yo, man, what the hell's the matter with you, bro? Yo, break it down, bro. Listen. So, I mean, I guess we've completed the whole Secret Wars journey. We've all agreed that it was a good story that went on. It helped to inspire many other limited series. And once again, Doom has proved his mettle by reaching for the highest, for the gold. So, once again, thank you for taking the time.
Hold on.
He getting started again.
Hold on. This didn't limited series came well before Secret Wars. Okay.
What, Contest of Champion? Before
then, the very first limited series that you have is World of Krypton in DC Comics. That's the first limited series.
When did that come out?
This is like 1981 or about that time. Might be early.
I don't recall.
You're getting into something.
I don't know.
We're gonna be on for another hour, so keep going. Sorry.
What happened now? Oh, when you got the proof, huh? Yeah, you can't handle it. Limited series, yes. Limited series were around before Secret Wars, and limited series are going to be around after Secret Wars because they allowed comic books to go off in a different direction where it's like we can tell these stories and they don't have to be continuous, they don't have to be serials, they can be finite, and we can wrap them up outside of the main canon story. So that was going to be there. The biggest legacy again from Secret Wars is that, hey, if we put all these guys together, we can make some money. We can make a lot of money. We can, do these crossovers. And if we drag it out for like, I don't know, a year or a year and a half, we can make more money because these guys are OCD when it comes to buying comics. They will buy the crossovers. That's the corporate mentality with a lot of this stuff. Because otherwise, it's like, hey, I don't see why they, a lot of the series that we have coming out. I mean, look what we did recently, Empire. You read Empire, okay? Can you ever get that time in your life back?
Can I give the comics? Can I give them back? That's my question. Can I get my money back?
Okay, it's in the same vein. It's in the same vein as opposed to we need all these characters together to tell this story. Okay, as opposed to let's throw all these characters together and tell a story because hey, we can do like 6-7 issues and we can do if this goes good, then we can have Infinity Quest. We can have the Infinity. We can have the Infinity Gang, and they'll go together to solve mysteries like the Scooby Gang. But we'll just keep it going as long as the money is there. And that I think is that is probably the biggest legacy out of it. They've learned that hey, this is DC and Marvel alike. If we throw all these guys together, if we build this, they will come, and we do just about every year. We do just about every year.
Well, I would add that since Mars was saying to us how this inspired so much, it's bringing up the fact that DC came up with the first mini as a story thing, saying, hey, people want some stories about like Krypton, right? Marvel sees that and says, we'll do 3 million miniseries.
Yes.
We'll anything that DC, like, oh, DC did some graphic novels, we'll flood the market with graphic novels. It's so weird to just see every time.
DC says, hey, we can do a story, and Marvel's like, hey, we can make some money. We can make some money off this.
And they did.
Wolverine, we'll do Contest of Champions, we'll do Secret Wars. And DC's like slowly, like, no, we'll do, so our money making stuff will be the Tales of the Titans. We'll do that. They're making some Tales of the Legion, and we'll have a couple of other things. And he's like, oh, no, we've got Marv. We need someone, somebody do the origin of DC Comics. He's like, all right, Marv, you gonna do Crisis? All right, we got one of them on our thing. What's Marvel doing now? Secret Wars 2? Oh, God.
The funny thing is that as much as, I don't know, those earlier ones, because I remember they had World of Krypton, the Byrne World of Krypton I thought was excellent. I thought that was the best work he did on Superman, bar none, regardless of everything, of what I may get in terms of flack from it. That first limited series, though, was a little bit harder because I wasn't as well versed with it. Mm-hmm. But then you go to some of those early ones with, they had the Hercules limited series, the Contest of Champions. A lot of those things were well written, or they were just fun at the end of the day. It was a nice something you could just plug into, and that was pretty much, that was it. And if it was cool, you might have seen another one. You know, they came out as people kept up with their interest. But it was at someplace else. It was also a good ground if you were like new. You could come in on the limited series, and they didn't have to worry about you taking away from the regular artist or the regular, writer, and those things to come. But I think a lot of those early ones, were executed very well. They were still like, okay, yeah, we can definitely do this, and we can make some more money off the whole thing. I still think the talent, the art, the writing, I still think for the most part with those, not the Secret Wars stuff, not the stuff where we're gonna drag everybody in there. Almost in the same vein as those Marvel graphic novels, the talent, the stuff that they executed, I thought was just very, well done. At least initially.
But Kai, I'm not disagreeing with the story. I'm not disagreeing the quality of the story or anything like that. I'm not even saying anything about Superman. My point is that's a bit different from what we were talking about in terms of Secret War and Infinity, where there's a host of different champions, a whole different stories. This is more focused on the Man of Steel and Kryptonians. If you're talking about the entire universe of Superman and those, that will be a different story. But it's going to be a much easier story when it's simply just a Superman story.
The thing with the same was just that
but get to know it here if you're going to be against me.
Was that the miniseries part was not that Marvel came up and said, hey, what we should do? Let's do a limited series with all our characters.
But I'm talking about with all your characters, hey, some people cite the Micronauts X-Men crossover as one of the greatest 4-part issues limited series ever.
Who said that? Who said that?
Yeah, no one even remembers the story of that.
Okay. Yeah, you said that. You said that. You're the only person I've ever known who even knows who Baron Kazar is. You said that.
Hey, why would you even bring up Baron Kazar? All the different kinds of
you proved it. You proved right there. There's that proof.
Look, all I'm saying is that's what some people say. That doesn't necessarily make that the best. What I'm talking about is a series with the most amount of characters. You know what I'm trying to say? Bringing all the superheroes, highlighting them, and some of the not villains, but
going back to story. I'm sticking with the fact, and I think the miniseries worked better as far as doing stories because with the graphic novels, they were they had to put a lot of work into 64.
Bite his hand, Snowy. Bite his hand.
The miniseries, they had even the Vision of Scarlet Witch. There are some fun issues and nice art in there. So it's like it wasn't as hard as when Marvel did those graphic novels where it's kind of hit or miss. It's classic stuff where you're like, these graphic novels should be the best stuff Marvel can do, and some are just fun, fun stories, and some are like Emperor Doom. Did you read the graphic novel Emperor Doom? No, you didn't, Mars. I know no one did.
I didn't.
But anyway, we did it. it was somehow hard to get through the Secret Wars because there was that middle area. There's always the middle of that struggle. What?
Hold on a sec, because you see the effect of that Secret Wars. I mean, that type of line-wide thing when they did with Secret Wars 2, you see that effect. But you see that effect a bit more. Did you? I know you read it, PD. Mars, did you read All Worlds at War, the Superman story?
No, I didn't read that.
That at one point that was outselling X-Men, and that was a line-wide thing, okay, where it was a Superman-centered story, but it was in every issue. I mean, it touched onto every single comic book. Okay, it was a big seller for Superman, did well for DC overall. But again, it just became the basic logic that if we tell a story that affects every single comic, even if the readers moan about it and they bellyache and we hate this, they still buy it. Okay, they still buy it. And the one thing that I think a lot of comic guys are not honest about is that you may say that you don't want to buy it or you're not going to buy it. But if you buy it and you like it, you'll start buying the rest of the issues because you want to be included into it. That's what happened with me with the last Secret Wars. Only thing was the story took me out of it. I said, this is too big and not entertaining enough that I actually want to read all this. I was trying to challenge myself. I said, no, I'm going to fail this because it just wasn't interesting enough. Or you look at Empire and you get into that and you're like, what is going on? And then you're like, why am I here? You know, I got other stuff that I could actually be doing and other stuff that I could actually read. But that bigger scope, I mean, in comparison, look at Secret Wars. Look at Secret Wars in comparison to something like Crisis on Infinite Earths. Look at Secret Wars in comparison to something like Secret Empire. Or even the Secret Wars that they did in 2015. And
right.
It's so much bigger. It's so much more sprawling. It's monstrous in terms of the proportions of what those guys did, even in comparison to Secret Wars 2. So, I mean, hey, you know, this was something that was done to support a toy line, and it became its own thing at the end of the day. Yeah, you can roll your eyes if you want. Okay, they sold a lot of toys. You would have put that in the memo too.
Well, you don't even have to go as far as Our Worlds at War. You can go to Millennium. We got that from DC.
God.
That was like a weekly miniseries, like 8
that was
issues.
awful.
But it sold really well. And ultimately the problem was that they created some funky new Guardians that didn't catch at all. The old Guardians came right back. But some of the stories that they did in the regular comics, I caught up with and I was interested, but I never got to the point of actually reading Millennium. I was just like, I think I've already got the story in Superman and then what's the name in the Justice League and the books I was buying that had the crossovers in it. Because those ones are interesting enough to not go back and be like, you know what, this is just like, but the sales, the fact of doing something like that or I think I read Invasion, but I don't remember it that well. I think Todd McFarlane was drawing that and
yeah.
And they had Bart Sears on the last issue before he started the Justice League Europe. So, DC had some stuff that was going on, but the crossovers has been big and the company-wide stuff, and they find new and interesting ways and always have it. But Our Worlds at War was the death of Hippolyta. I think that's what the big thing was in there. And that's what Jeff Loeb was kind of saying. In Marvel, they're fighting the guy with a flame. X-Men is fighting the guy with a flamethrower, and we have, Hippolyta's fighting these heavy things, and this is like, it was like, wow, this is the first time I heard Jeff Loeb kind of throw something back at Marvel. Like he's really, like kind of stepping up, and it was that next stage of Superman creators that came after that with Loeb and KC and all those guys. So
that's good. So I guess, guys, we're wrapping up the Secret Wars, wrapping up the limited series tutorial that someone insisted that we all needed to get. And just say, once again, reiterate what we all agreed on, that this was one of the more interesting limited series that helped.
We had a commenter. Somebody commented, oh, this person I've never saw before, the Brown family.
Oh, what did they say?
The Brown family said, fun review with the icon in it. Thank you, Brown family, for your appreciation of our review.
I'd love to know who those people are.
Brown. That sounds familiar. Hey Mars, that sound familiar to you?
Not at all. You know what sounds familiar to me?
What?
Secret Wars and Doctor Doom. That's what they should do. So, gentlemen, once again, just want to say we want to thank you guys for spending some time with us so we can discuss some of the details of Secret War as well as some of the events and issues around it. If you like us, subscribe, comment, spin a rock.
Out.
Out.